Welcome back to another video. So in this video we are going to discuss about the virtual routers. Otherwise, let me see if I have my lab topology. Yep, lab topology. So we will discuss about the virtual routers. So now throughout this whole course, if you remember that whenever I'm using the L3 interface, by default I'm assigning to the default virtual router. So currently I will change this one to 192.168.1.0/24. So currently in my topology, all of the zones have been assigned to I don't say zones, all of the interfaces have been assigned to the default um, virtual router. So virtual router, it just represents your routing table. So you can say that if, for example, I am using default over here and I am using, for example, VR over here. So these both are different virtual routers. So different routing tables. So for example, now in the default, what I will do is that in this lab, I will say that I will create two virtual routers. So one will be the VR1 and the outside will be the VR2. Okay. And DMZ will also be in the VR1. So basically this whole part will be the inside part will be the internal part will be the in the VR1 and the external part will be in the VR2 routing table. So what happens now is that before it was default. So default was having 172.168.0.0/16 routing table because we gave the static, and the interface one 172.168.1.0/24, outside interface 192.168.1.0/24, and 20.1.1.0/24. So when we were using the default, all the subnets were included over here, including the default gateway. So that's where the communication was very much pretty much easy, even though we just created a policy using the zones. Now what we are doing is that we are now segregating your routing table now. So inside and the DMZ will be included into VR1. So that means my VR1 is going to have the subnets of 172.168.1.0/24 and 20.1.1.0/24. So when we see from the point of Palo Alto, so Palo Alto only knows this subnet and this subnet. Palo Alto does not know this subnet, does not know this subnet, and does not know this subnet. So we will give a static IP saying that 172.168, sorry, static route 0.0/16. If you want to reach to this subnet, next hop will be my internal router. So we will assign the static route. But when we come to the VR2, in this VR2, we do have an outside subnet that is 192.168.1.0/24 and the default gateway. Now the problem is that from the inside to DMZ, I am able to communicate because this routing table has those details. But if I want to communicate inside to the outside, that's where the problem is because my routing table doesn't have any information. So first I will configure this much, then we will come back to the communication now. So let's go to the network, go to the virtual routers, and here I will create one VR1. I'm not adding any interface yet. Click on OK. Just creating the virtual routers and VR2. Alright, so in the evaluation by default you can create 3 virtual routers, and I think if you have the license, the maximum you can create 10 or 11 virtual routers. Again, it depends upon the different models. So I have VR1 and VR2. So as per our topology, we decided that E1/2 and 1/3 will be in the VR1. So let's go to the interface now. I will click on E1/2 and I will select VR1 and default routing table. So what I have to do is that, what does it says? Error. Member cannot be deleted because of reference from network, virtual router, default routing table, IP, static route, internal info. Okay, let me go back to the virtual routers, default one, static route, internal static route. I will remove, and I will also remove this one, this one. Both the static routes, I will remove it. Let's get back to the interface now. Interface 1/2, and VR1. Yep, that should be all good now. 1/3, that will be assigned to VR1. Now the outside interface, that is 1/1 now, will have VR2. And also we said that we are going to assign a static IP, static route towards the internal for communication in the VR1. So we will go to the virtual routers, go to the VR1 and static routes. So click on add, and I will say that internal 172.168.0.0/16, and the interface will be 1/2. Next hop will be 172.168.1.2. Administrative distance will be 10. Click on OK and OK. Now coming to the VR2, we said that we are going to assign a static route, default route. So let's go to the VR2 now. If I go to static route, click on add default route. That should be 0.0.0/0. Interface should be 1/1. You see that there is only one interface. Next hop will be 192.168.1.1. Administrative distance will be 10. Click on OK. So I'll go ahead and commit now. So once the commit is complete, what should happen is that the inside to DMZ communication should be good, but inside and DMZ to the outside should be blocked, because we once we have that one. So let me go back to that one. It is still not committed. So routing routes. So you see that this is the default route. Within the default, now I have all the routes. Okay, currently. Okay, currently within the default, I have all the routes. So once we do the commit, what should happen is that I should have two different tables now, because VR1 and VR2, we are no more using default. So let the commit finish now. So commit it finished. So let me go back here. And if I say now, and now you see that VR1 and VR2. So if you look closely in the VR1, so we are able to communicate with 20 network and 172.168.0.0 network, but we are not able to communicate with the outside network, and we don't have any default gateway. So that means if I go back to my topology, I should, from my management PC, I should be able to ping to my domain controller, but from my management PC, I'm not able to ping to the outside one. So let me go back to the management. And if I say that ping 20.1.1.2, because we already have the policy in place, so that's why I'm able to ping. So if I ping 192.168.1.1, that is my ISP, I'm not able to ping. Okay, so if I go back to my policy now, even though I am using the zones in here to, so first one I will say disable that one. So even though I am using the inside to the outside, okay, inside and DMZ going towards the outside, traffic is allowed on the policy. But the problem is that since inside and DMZ lies on the different routing table and the outside of VR2 lies on a different routing table, so they are not able to see each other. So it's like a VRF, so it has their own routing table. Next, What we want to do is that now if you want to communicate, if you want to communicate between these two virtual routers, we are able to configure that one. So for the virtual router 2, what I can say that I can say that 172.168.0.0/24 network, if they want to reach to this network, go to virtual router 1. And also if you want to reach to 20.1.1.0/24 network, go to virtual router 1. So that's what I have to say to VR2. Now with the VR1, because I want to go to the internet, simple is that if I want to go to default gateway, any of them, just to go to VR2, because the outside network is also eligible in this route, as well as the, what do we say, if it wants to communicate with the internet, that is also eligible with this route. So on the VR1, we only need only one route. But on the VR2, because we have to specifically specify that to go to that particular subnet, go to this VR1 virtual router, because it already has the default gateway assigned in this routing table. So let's go ahead and configure now. So first I will go to the um, network virtual routers. First I will go to the VR2 and go to the static, click on add, and here I will say that internal inside, or I will say simply inside zone. Destination, I will say 172.168.0.0/16 because that's what my inside zone is. And the instead of interface now, I can interface 1/1. Next hop, I can select virtual router. Okay, so what I'm saying that inside, if you want to reach the subnet, go to this interface and you should have next hop your virtual router, and that virtual router is VR1. Click on OK. So admin distance is not required. Click on add one more time here again. Here I will say DMZ, destination will be 20.1.1.0/24. Interface will be again the same because that is the only one interface assigned to it, but with the next hop will be the next virtual router, that is VR1. Click on administrative distance. I'm not giving anything, so that should be okay and okay. So the outside part is done. So the VR2 knows where to go in order to communicate with 172.168.0.0/16 network and 20 network. Now the VR1, we should just give the default gateway because that is facing towards the internet. So we'll go to the VR1 and then go to the static route, click on add. And if I say a default ISP, that should be 0.0.0/0. And now we do have two interfaces. I will select any one interface. Next will be the VR and the next will be the VR2. Okay, and click OK. Alright, so let's go ahead and commit this time now. So before we did not have, VR2 did not have any information about this route. So we have provided that route information to VR2, and VR1 did not have any information about the default route. So that's what we have provided over here. So once the commit is complete, we should see those routes in there. Right, almost done. So before I was trying to reach to my default gateway, I was unable to reach. So once the commit is complete, okay, commit is successful. Let me go ahead and see again. And now you see that in the VR1 I do have a default gateway, and in the VR2 I do have that static route for the internal networks. So in this case now, if I say ping 192.168.1.1, my traffic should be now allowed. And if I say ping google.com, my traffic should be allowed now because I do have a policy that is allowing inside and DMZ to the outside. Okay, so let me go to the Windows DC, my domain controller, and try to ping it from here. And if I ping google.com, it is able to ping. And similarly, if I try to access the internet like Facebook, that is also able to access. Now, the concept of virtual routers is that if you want to segregate your routing table, that's where it is good, but it depends on how large your organization is. And you need a specific routes to be like a traffic to be go through the specific route. That's where it is useful, but that is the concept of virtual router, just like a VR. It has its own routing table and we can configure that. But anyhow, that was the virtual router. I hope this was informative for you and thank you.